Well, hello, Hebrew scholars. This is just an update that and a review. So next week is on the March 17th is the March lay school class, and I will be not in this part of the United States, but on an island called Oahu in Hawaii. So I hope that you all will have a good class. This is just a review of what we learned from last time. And again, just a reminder that we're a step behind on our class, but that's okay because we had some virtual in December when it was really snowy. So in the last class, we talked about nouns and verbs in the feminine. But before we get to that, I just have the Hebrew alphabet up there for just to kind of make our brain read and remember and connect with our mouth how to say the Hebrew alphabet. So I invite you. The first one we have is Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ain, Pei, Tsadi, Kof, Resh, Shin, Tav. Now notice I just did them as like one of them, and I want to highlight that the Aleph and the Ain are both silent letters, but those are the letters of the alphabet. So those two letters take on the vowel sounds when it is found in a letter. And then we have a few letters that have a different pronunciation. For example, in bet, it's pronounced bet when we have the dagesh in the middle of the bet, and it is v or vet when it doesn't have the dot. The other is kaf. When it has the dot, it's more like a kitty sound, like kaf. When it doesn't, when it has that C looking, well, C, there we go, the C looking letter, and it has the not the dot, it's more like the like a the guttural sound, like chet. So there's actually, there could be two sounds in a word, but that is kaf or chaf. So kaf or chaf. The other one is pay, and it pronounced pay with the dagesh in the letter, and it's fey when it doesn't have the dagesh. So it's pay or fey. The next one, which is a little bit easier, still has that kind of dagesh letter, but not quite inside the letter, but on top is the sheen. And the way I can remember it is when the dot is, or the little candle is lit on the right side, it's a sheen, and when the candle is lit on the left side, it's seen. So you will hear people sometimes will say the alphabet like this. They'll say Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Chaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ain, Pei, Fei, Tsadi, Kof, Resh, Shin, Sin, Tav. You'll hear them say the alphabet like that. My next, let's see. Let's see if it goes. Come on. There we go. The next are the vowels. Now, we've kind of really focused on the sound of the vowels and how it is written and how it looks. And you can see that on the left column over here are how it's written. In the middle is what the word or what the vowel is called. And on the right column is the pronunciation. So for the first wave, it's called a comets, and it is an ah, so ah, comets. The other one is a patak, is ah, and that's the flat patak. The kind of easy is so as we have the next one, we have the line and the two dots on the side of it, and that's called the khataf patak, which almost sounds like half patak. And we'll see that again as well. So it's almost, remember that it's like half patak, but that's also ah. So the first three of these, the one that looks like the T, a floor mat, and a half a mat, are all ah sounds, ah. The next ones are an eh sound. The three triangle dot is a segol. The two dot is a shiva. And then we also have, again, we have the chatap segol, which is like half a segol, which is the three dots with a shiva. And all those are pronounced sounds, sounds. The next two we have is an E sound, and it's written as like just a dot underneath, or a dot and a yod together. That's an E sound. And we have the hirik and the hirik mele. The hirik mele. So all those are E sounds, E sounds. Oh, I don't want to do that. Going back. The next one we have is O, like a short, and we have a dot on top, and that's called a cholam chaser, cholam chaser, O sound. And then we have a cholam mele, which is that vav with the dot on top, an O sound, O sound. The next two is an oo, and it's a vav with a dot in the middle like a dagesh, or we have the three steps down like ooh, kind of like, remember, sliding it down. And the first one over there is called a shuruk, and the three dots going down is the kubuts, an oo sound. Then the last one we have are two dots. It's called a tsere, and it's an A sound, a tsere. And you can almost hear the sounds of the vowels in the words itself. So just a heads up. Now that we got that warmed up, let's look at what we talked about. Well, that's not it. Oh, that's right, because I combined. Let's keep going. Come along with me. There we go. So we were in chapter 5 in nouns and verbs in the feminine. And it was kind of an oral review. You can always go back and review what these words, kind of from the following, which was a noun and verbs in the masculine form. Let's just, I'll do this bottom one on number 6. We'll just do 6 for the time. And the first reads, I'm going to use the book this time, is Melek Shamar. Melek Shamar. So we know that's a king guarded. And we have Melek Shamar Ben, a king guarded a son. Then we have David Hamelech Shamar Bain. Now, I'm just translating it one way. There's a few other ways that it can be translated, so I want you to kind of look back at the chapter about it too. We have Hamelech, right? So that's the king. The king's son guarded a thing. That could be a way to translate it. So that is number 6, and let's go up to number 7. We'll go up to number 7 over here. We have Abraham Ahmad. Abraham stood, or Abraham did stand. Abraham Zakar. Abraham remembered. And then we have Abraham Shema Ish. Abraham spoke to a man. So that's number 7 up there. So hopefully that was just a short review of chapter 4. And then in chapter 5, we learned some feminine vocabulary words and some kind of typical vocabulary words that you will read in Hebrew when you look in the Hebrew in the Old Testament. So on page 32, going down the list, we have Av, we have El, we have Isha, which is not cattle. I'm reading the next line as wife. We have Behema, which is cattle. We have Bat, daughter. We have he. Remember that she or it, right? Who is he? He is she or it. We have halak, which is walked or went. And then next column we have Yerushalayim, or it's also pronounced Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. Min is from. Mizraim is Egypt. Mishpacha, family. Mishpacha. Then we have Na'ara, which is young woman. Na'ara. Na'ar is young man. I just said young woman twice. Na'ara is young woman. We have Ruth or Root. Then we have Sarah, which is Sarah. So in the vocabulary list, so they use M and F to tell you which ones are masculine and feminine. You'll get that throughout the book. And let's see. It brought about that Jerusalem rather than Jerusalem, and both are pronounced the same. So it's okay. The biblical spelling versus how it's currently spelled. In English, only a few nouns are specifically masculine or feminine. For example, man, woman, waiter, waitress. In Hebrew, all nouns are either masculine or feminine. And even though the things they described may have no male or female qualities. So the noun David or Davar word is masculine and follows the rules of masculine nouns. And then like the noun mishpacha is family, is feminine and follows follows rules for feminine nouns. So you just gotta kind of remember that. There is nothing male or female about either a house or family, but every Hebrew noun is either masculine or feminine. Feminine singular nouns, nouns ending in ah. You can see that on page 32, right? That's the ending ah. That's making and a marking of a feminine noun. So we have na'ara is young woman. We have mishpacha, that's family. And the next one we have emet, which is truth, and bat. So nouns ending with a tav are usually feminine. They're usually feminine. Then we have Yerushalayim and Mitzrayim. And names of cities and countries are always feminine. So I'm just looking here for a brief second. Yeah. Going on the next page, there are no characteristic endings for the masculine singular noun. So if a singular noun does not have a feminine ending, it's probably masculine. So that's, and they give examples. It's a or ta, tav. It's that denotes most likely a feminine noun. So gender in verbs. In Hebrew, every verb has both masculine and feminine forms. Masculine singular verbs. In the last chapter, right in chapter 4, all the verbs were used in their masculine form. And so then the pattern for masculine singular form in the perfect tense is shown below. So we have the example of what it looks like. We have the vowels underneath. So we have shema, shamar, he guarded, zakar, he remembered, amad, he stood, halak, he went, malak, he ruled. The feminine singular verbs have the a at the end. The hey is added to the three letters to make it in the feminine verb form. So they have the same verbs that we had in the masculine form and show them how it is in the feminine form on page 33 in chapter 5. So we have sham'a. So now remember that we have that shiva in the middle underneath the mem, and sham'a, that's like a stop. So that's how, so the masculine would be shema, the feminine would be sham'a. She guarded would be shamra, shamra. She remembered would be zakra. She stood would be amda. She went would be halakha. She ruled would be malakha. Fascinating, right? Fascinating. Let's go to the next one. A good review. Agreement. Subject and verb have to be the same gender. So the noun what is masculine, the verb is masculine. Same with feminine. So they give examples like he stood would be hu amad. She stood would be he amda. All right. Then we have David Shamar, David guarded. Then we have Sarah Shamra, Sarah guarded. Sarah Shamra. That's a little tongue twister. Then it moves on to talking about roots, the root words and root letters. And we've kind of done a little bit along the way, and I hope to do a little bit more in the March class. I'll try to do it as best as I can online, and hopefully everyone will get what I got. So, the Hebrew language is built on a system of roots. A Hebrew root is a set of letters, usually 3, which expresses a general idea. Vowel patterns and additional letters are added to the root to give specific meaning. Many words with similar meanings are created from each root. So on the page 34 in chapter 5, it shows you the root letters for these words. For example, we have Mem, Lamed, and Chaf. We have Melech. Let me look at it. I gotta look. Malak, he ruled. Melech is king, and Malkut. Malkut is kingdom. So in those 3 different words, you can kind of pull out what the 3 root letters are, and then you can also decipher what is added onto that root letter, those root letters to make that word, which is what we've been working on through this time. Verb roots. There is especially important relationship between Hebrew roots and Hebrew verbs. So every verb in Hebrew has a root generally composed of 3 letters, and they give example of the verbs that we have been kind of accustomed to throughout these chapters. And on the bottom, they have the root letters. For example, the root letters for remember is Zain, Chaf, Resh. And we have for here is Shin, Mem, Ain. For guard, it's Shin, Mem, Resh. And for stand, we have Ein, Mem, Dalet. On the next page, on page 35, you can see that singular perfect patterns. We have the root, the masculine, and the feminine. So that's kind of interesting how they show that to you. So we have the root. Like for the top one is Shema. And in the middle, we have the masculine, which is Shema. Well, okay, go back. I said the masculine first. The root is Shin, Mem, Ein. Then we have the vowels added, which is Shema. Then we have in the left column, the feminine vowels are added and the ending. So it is Sham-ah. Sham-ah is the feminine. When you look at this and kind of just study the root letters and then look at the words, just even looking at the words and seeing what's added, you'll get to really notice what word a noun or a verb belongs to which grouping when you look at an actual verse in the Hebrew Old Testament. So after that, it goes to talking about and in Hebrew, which is in English the word and is not a separate, but it's a separate word, but in Hebrew it's not. It's kind of added on. It's attached to the word. So they give an example of Av, and then and a father, which is Va'av. And we have Hamelech and we have Vahamelech and the king. And the word and va is with a vav ordinarily takes the shiva underneath. whoops, and they give examples of the sentences. They also give examples of when it's sometimes written with a dagesh in the middle and it's pronounced oo. Now, it doesn't say, it says not vu, but I was also taught that it could be vu. It's not totally incorrect, but you can also just say oo. Since, and it also may appear as the other vowels as well with those variations. The variations do not change the meaning of the and. So that's something to kind of look at and kind of remember and mark this page for and, references to and. In the above examples, they notice that the pronunciation of the words containing the baguette kafet, right? Beit, kaf, and pe may change. The change in pronunciation does not change the meaning of the word. So you just got to remember that it doesn't change the meaning of the word. The other in chapter 5, so we learned and is v. We also learned min, which is from. It's also attached. It can also be attached as a me or me, may. And they give examples like mi bait or meish or mehamelech, from the king. And then they go down to the use of it. The masculine pronoun he is who is used for it when referring to masculine nouns. Feminine pronoun he for she is also used for it as referring to feminine. So context is important when one reads the Hebrew in the Old Testament as to what is the it referring to, because you kind of have to look at the sentence and the words that are surrounding that. So they give examples. The first example, the house stood and it guarded the family. Ha bait, amad, v'hu, shamar, mishpachat. So you can see that it's all of the verbs in that first one is masculine. Those verbs are masculine. And then, so the it, so for who is it, is a masculine it. The second one, we have hamish pachat, zakra, Vahi, Halak, Halakah, El, Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim. The family remembered and it went to Jerusalem. Now you can see in that sentence we have a hey at the end of mishpachat. We have the hey at the end of zakar. We have the hey, the ahe, at the end of halak. So those are all feminine endings to those verbs, and so the it in there is actually feminine. So the exercises that they have in chapter 5 are, read and translate, and write them, read and translate the verb forms and write their root. Let me see what other one. Well, let's look at the first two at least. So in exercise 1, read and translate each of the following words and state whether they are masculine or feminine. So let's do that together. The first one is Ben. What do you think that is? Ben. I hope you said masculine. Number 2 is bat. Has a tav at the end. It's feminine. Number 3 is ish. You may even remember this word from a couple of readings. Ish means man, so it's masculine. Number 4, isha. We have the and the hey added to the end of ish, which means it's feminine and it means woman. Number 5 is Avraham. That's a name, and we know that one is Abraham, and that's masculine. Number 6, we have Na'ar. This one you might even remember too by now. It means young man, so it is masculine. Number 7 is Na'ara. We just had the masculine form in the previous number 6. So this one has the at the end, so that is young woman and it's feminine. Number 8 is Melech, and that means king, which means that it's masculine. Number 9, Mishpacha. That's a new vocabulary word. And you can tell at the end it has the and the hey, and that's a definite pointing out that it's a feminine noun, which means family. Number 10 is Av. That is masculine, and it means father. Number 11, we have Bahema. And that you can tell it has the and the hey at the end, and that is a feminine noun, which means cattle or animal. Number 12, we have Yerushalayim. May have tricked you a little bit. It's Jerusalem, right? And cities are always feminine. Yep. Number 13, we have Devar. That is a masculine word, masculine. And then we have Ba'it. No, it has a tav at the end, so it's house. So the tav at the end, it's a feminine noun. Number 15 is Mitzrayim. And that's a place again. Mitzrayim is Egypt, and places are always feminine nouns. That's right. Very good. All right, in that second exercise, we have read and translate the following verb forms and write their root letters. Okay. So number 1, we have halak and halakha. And the root letters would be hey, lamed, kaf, right? And that means to walk or went. Number 2, we have amad and amda, and that is stood or stand. And the root letters would be ayin, mem, dalet. Number 3, we have shamar and shamra means here, right? Oh no, shamar, guard. Oh, that's what I think. Shamar. Shamar is guard. And we have actually the root is sheen, mem, and resh. You could tell that the shamra, is feminine because it has the ah and the hey at the end. Number 4 is shema, shema, and we have shama, and that means to hear, and the root is sheen, mem, ayin. Number 5 we have zakar, and underneath that we have zakra. That means to remember. We have zain, kaf, and resh are the 3 root letters. The last one we have is malak. Gotta look at them. Yep, malak and malcha. Now it's interesting. So in the same in number 1 and number 6, we have the final kaf, which looks different than the regular. So the root letters are mem, lamed, kaf, and that means to rule. Well, I'm going to stop our review of Chapter 5 here. Again, if you have any questions, please call me, email me. I'll try to get to them, and I will be creating the video for our class pretty soon. God's peace and shalom and happy studying.